It was Howard Zinn who said, the problem with a two-party system is that when neither party represents the public's interest, the voters have nowhere to turn. And isn't that the truth? And isn't that kind of where we are? The voters have nowhere to turn if neither party represents their interest. And guess what? Neither party does. You might occasionally get an outsider candidate that kicks in the door for a little while, but they find a way to stop him. Fair or foul, dirty or clean, they find a way to get past that anomaly and back to business as usual. Matter of fact, the Democrats, it's so bad with the Democrats, not even a member of the Kennedy family can get a fair hearing in the Democratic Party, running against one of the most obviously corrupt and mentally impaired, perhaps, candidates that they've ever run of all time, perhaps in American history. And yet they can't even get the heir of Camelot to have a fair hearing in their party. That's just how terrible that one's gotten. You think, oh, but I'm a Republican. I'm on Team Red, not Team Blue. Yeah, that's what they want to do. They want to turn politics into a spectator sport where you're cheering on your team, rah, rah. You're not a citizen self-governing. You're what? You're a fan cheering. And they direct your attention to the presidential races where, honestly, it won't be decided by our vote, our one vote or two votes. In a local race, especially if you help pick the candidate, especially if you run them as an independent or a third-party label, you'll actually be doing much more effective change in upsetting the system, upsetting the establishment, than you will be backing even an outsider candidate within one of the two main parties, because you're playing their game on their turf. They're going to find a way to get that guy. Just like, even if you're a billionaire who is a master at using the media, like Donald Trump, if you put all your chips on that one horse, they're going to find a way to get him. Now, that's beside the question, which I want to address today. I've already talked about Kennedy and how the Democrats are not going to give him a fair chance. You see what they're doing to Trump. They've got, let's say he's broken the law. Well, they've got so many laws that everybody breaks it, but they just selectively enforce the laws against people they don't like. And that's it's not a justice system anymore. It's a control system. And that's what we're facing in addition to everything else we have to face. But I would argue that Donald Trump is not a good candidate. And Vivek Ramaswamy is the other outsider guy who's getting some traction. He's not a good candidate either. And if you do not have a decent human being to back, and I'm going to support my point by saying it, and I'm going to make it real simple. Matter of fact, why don't I just do that first? Why isn't Donald Trump the guy to support? Why he, obviously they don't like him. Obviously they're trying to stop him. Yes, they are, because he's a loose cannon, not because he knows what to do to stop what they're going to do to you. I agree. The establishment is rotten. The elites, they're only elite in power, not in character. They need to go. They need to be changed. They need to be born again or exiled, something. Okay? But I'm arguing that Donald Trump himself he may be an alternative to the establishment, but he's not a guy who understands policy. He's not a guy who has any correct answers. He's not a guy whose character, frankly, you can trust. You say, oh, Mark, you're asking too much. You're asking for perfection. No, I'm not. When Bill Clinton ran for president, I'm old enough to remember this. All my conservative friends said, well, he sounds good, but if his wife can't trust him, how can I? That's what he said. Yeah, that's right. Bill Clinton sounds good, but if his wife can't trust him, how can I? And I don't argue with that. That's great logic. I'm keeping it. I'm consistent. Guess what, guys? Donald Trump has cheated on every wife he's ever had. And what you believed about Bill Clinton, if you're old enough, believe about him. You cannot trust him. He may be useful to you temporarily because the establishment will use all their energy against him, But to build him up into any kind of national savior is a terrible, terrible mistake that doesn't take into account how important character is, and really having the right ideas is, versus being good at manipulating the media, being good at sales and self-promotion, which he is a genius at that. And I'm very sympathetic towards him in the sense that it's obvious this is a political persecution. The system is being grossly unjust when they go after Donald Trump with these flimsy charges that, if they are crimes, guess what? Everyone else has done it, but they're selectively prosecuting him because they don't want him to run for president. I don't want to insult the honor and integrity of bananas by calling that a banana republic move. It is an outrage. And Donald Trump is outraged. He's outraged at injustice when it happens to him. That's when he gets outraged. Now, were we unjust to Julian Assange? Yeah, and we are being right now. He didn't care a bit. What about Edward Snowden? Okay, he didn't care a bit. What about those January 6th protesters who were unjustly imprisoned because he invited them to come protest, and they basically got lured into a trap? I don't believe for 1 second he knew it was a trap, but it was. He doesn't seem at all wrapped when the boot of the government unjustly steps on these other people. He doesn't seem to care. When he cares? When it can get him some adulation. When some segment of the population can celebrate him and talk about how great he is. So he'll pardon a rapper, maybe, but not these other people that really they were trying to make the country better and the things they did. Maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, but maybe their beliefs, what they were trying to do in their minds. And I don't say maybe there was a few who actually did conspire or to do something really bad, but most of them, even on the January 6th protesters, they didn't think they were there to overthrow the government. That's crazy. Most of them, it looked like an unguided tour to me. Now, if of course there was thousands of people there, so they don't all uniformly fit into one group. But by and large, yeah, that was they came at his invitation, and he deserted them. So also, he continually got bad people, and he appointed bad people. He didn't have good judgment when he appointed people to office. But never mind all that. You can go Operation Warp Speed and all the rest of the wisdom of his decisions. He kept us out of war because he knew instinctively war was bad for business. And I salute him for that. So I'm not saying he didn't do anything good. I'm saying, am I asking too much? Am I asking too much to ask for a candidate whose wife can trust him? Am I setting the bar unrealistically high? Do you in your life know men whose wives can trust them? Well, then they might be someone whose character is better suited for president. And maybe you should salute and honor them a little more. Maybe help them run for a local office as an independent outside this crooked, dirty two-party system that has helped destroy the country, that has helped turn politics into a spectator sport instead of a vehicle that Americans can self-govern. But the problem with self-government is you got to do it yourself, and it's more work, and you have to see beyond the next election. See that I don't have a horse to vote for in this presidential race, so I am going to focus on local politics. I can't reform either one of these political parties that have ruined the country, and why would I want to ruin my good name by associating with them? So they're controlled from Washington, D.C. They are funded by global, not even American money. They've really made a mess of things, and I'm going to do the right thing for the country and be among the first to go another way, form a new local party or an independent candidate. And I understand it's hard to get on the ballot outside the two-party system. I did a documentary on that, an hour and a half long, full-fledged documentary. I'll drop a link in the description section in case you have the time to watch that later. But people did take on this system, and some at a cost, some of them won. But I'm not asking too much. I am sticking to my guns on this. You guys are settling for too little. That is the real problem. And I'm not going with you on that. And you say, well, but the country is in danger. Yeah, the country is in danger, but what you're suggesting won't fix it. He doesn't know how to fix it. He doesn't have the character to fix it. So, okay, but what about Vivek Ramaswamy? He's saying all the right things, as did Clinton, as did Obama, as did Trump. They sounded good when they were talking. Well, Mark, what's wrong with Vivek Ramaswamy? You know, he is saying good things. He actually talks like he has some policy answers. But here's what you got to watch, guys. The people that run this thing, they're smart people. They didn't get to be where they are by being dumb. And they know that the best way to control the opposition is to lead it yourself. That's what's happened with the Republican Party. And the Democrats will expand government. The Democrats will grow the state. The Democrats will push the cultural envelope. And that's their job. The Republicans' job is to be the alternative. And so when people get tired of that, they're uncomfortable because they've gone too far on those things. People switch and vote for the Republicans. And the Republicans' job is to do what? To be inert, to remain still, motionless, and quiet. And you absorb all that political energy from all the people who didn't like the things the Democrats did, but then your response is to what? Is to do nothing, to leave the things right where they are, or keep going in the same direction, just slower. And then people get mad about something else, and they'll turn to the Democrats again. And then the Democrats move the bar, they push the envelope, they grow government, and people get scared by it, made uncomfortable. They vote for the Republicans. Guess what? The Republicans are inert. They're still, they're quiet, they're motionless. They do very little except enrich themselves and get in a scandal once in a while. Yeah, start a war. But controlled opposition is a thing, and they know. They do focus groups. They know what you want to hear, and they can get somebody to tell you that. And I think Vivek Ramaswamy is that guy. They're telling him, here's what they want to hear. Go say that. What makes you think he's that kind of guy? Well, let's talk about how he got rich. And he was already wealthy, but I'm talking about really wealthy, rich. But before we do, speaking of intellectual consistency, which I know very few people, most people's character has been undermined to the point where they're not interested in that anymore. They're interested in taking whatever fact can help what they wanted to believe and using that and ignoring all the other facts. And that's they've been brought to this place of thoughtlessness and low character by degrees. And I know it's going to take degrees to get out. But let's start with, how many of you out there questioned Barack Obama's citizenship and thought he might not be eligible to be president because he wasn't a natural-born citizen as the Constitution defines it? Well, I was one of those, and I studied the matter. And what I determined was the 14th Amendment did not really define natural-born citizen. It said people can become a citizen if they're born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The guy who wrote that part, Howard Jacob, said that means the full and complete jurisdiction. It would include exclude, I should say, the children of ambassadors and, foreigners sent here on government duty and all that sort of thing. Now, courts have ruled, in Wong and a couple of others, they've ruled all around this issue. Yes, you're definitely a citizen if you're born in the United States, even if your parents are ordinary citizens of other countries and they come here and they give birth to you, you are a citizen at birth. Is that the same thing as the founders were talking about in Article 2 of the Constitution when they said you had to be a natural-born citizen? I'm convinced that it is not. But what if I'm wrong? Let's say I'm wrong. I'm going to explain to you why I think that. But what if I'm wrong? Well, again, am I asking too much, friends, for a president who is born in America to parents who are Americans? Is that just too high a bar? Am I being unrealistic? Do I need to lighten up? Because that's just simply too much to ask. 320 million people in this country, and we've got to close our eyes to whether or not he is a natural-born citizen. Just pretend that's not even a question, because we can't find anybody born in America to American parents that is any good for the job. Or have we really fallen that far? And if we have, what is the point of trying to rescue it? Maybe the crash is something that we need because it can't be saved anyway. I just don't think I'm setting too high a bar when I say I want a candidate, an American whose parents were American, and his wife can trust him. That's really just not too high a bar. But let's go. And, Donald Trump's business partners, he's declared bankruptcy. There have been plenty of times he could not be trusted either in business. But before I get to Vivek Ramaswamy in business, let me go back to this natural born citizen thing. There was a book called The Law of Nations by a guy named Vattel. And we know that the founders referenced that book when they were writing the Constitution, when they were drafting it up. And even it says law of nations with law and nations and capitals in the Constitution, as if they were saying the name of that book. Now, we don't know that because a lot of times they capitalize things in the Constitution sort of randomly, so we can't know that they were referencing that book for sure, but it seems like they were in the Constitution. Well, that book defines natural-born citizen, and it defines it the same way I just did. A natural-born citizen is someone born on the soil of the country to parents who are citizens of the country. English common law at the time said, well, just the father has to be a citizen. And so there's more than one way to look at it. But the fact is, and he won't answer the question, so we can't confirm it, but it very much appears that his parents were not United States citizens at the time he was born. And indeed, depending on what the laws of India were at the time, Vivek Ramaswamy may have been born a dual citizen. That is, a citizen of India as well as a citizen of the United States. And if that's the case, Howard Jacob, the guy who wrote the Citizens Clause of the 14th Amendment, the Citizenship Clause, Vivek Ramaswamy would not meet Senator Jacobs' requirements. That is, that he be someone who there has no completing claims. The United States has sole and complete jurisdiction over that person, because India would also say, hey, we also have a claim. He is from our people who are citizens of our country. But I'm against globalism, so excuse me if I think just the one guy, the president, should be an American citizen whose parents were American citizens. Born on U.S. soil, parents were citizens. 320 million of us, can we not find anyone? Well, not in this rotten system. We have a party system that excludes people who are good and promotes people who have questionable character. You know in your life people who are decent people, who have good judgment, who are wise, who are trustworthy. Is the Republican or Democratic Party knocking on their door, asking them to run for something? No, they're not. They don't want those kind of people. I mean, they want people who have that reputation. You have to do it, guys and gals, not for president, not for U.S. Senate or something big like that, but a local. At least have some decent people in your city and in your county, maybe the next time in your state legislature, and work up from there. We cannot trust these people in Washington. We cannot trust this system to give us good candidates. This election cycle proves it. It is like Moses coming down the mountain, and just pronouncing it. JFK Jr. or RFK Jr. can't get a fair hearing in the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party, we've got what we've got. Even the anomaly, who everybody's thinking this is why I can still believe in this system. Don't you see how the system is trying to cheat him? And even if they don't, he doesn't know the right answer. He just doesn't agree with their answer. He's a loose cannon. He's not the correct answer. But I'm going to say one more thing here about Vivek Ramaswamy. Here's a brief synopsis of how he got really rich. He was already working at a hedge fund, and his mother was a doctor. But he got some funding, bought a few drugs that a major drug company has tested many times and said, you know what, this drug just doesn't do what we were hoping it does. So we'll sell it for whatever we can get for it. I think it was $5 million, which for me is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not. And so they got this stuff. And his mother, they didn't run any new research, but she reinterpreted the research they already ran. And as someone with a little bit of a science background, I know that, excuse me, I know that you can make these studies have outcomes that are different just by rearranging the data. And that's what she did. And they put out a press release, oh, it looks like this drug has some promise in helping this very common condition. So now we own it. We're going to do a big study to really prove it. But based on her reanalysis of these other studies that have been conducted, it's got some promise. And he was on TV. Vivek Ramaswamy was on TV selling this idea with the same energy and sincerity that he is selling his candidacy right now. He was collecting money from people. They were buying stock. Oh boy, they're going to, we're going to get all this money. We're going to help all these people. And people were buying into it. Now, they had to hold on to the stock for 2 years. The insiders, and there was only 7 or 8 insiders. He was one of them. I think his brother was another. His mother was another. So there wasn't a whole lot of people that were the insiders on this stock. But they controlled the research, and they just strung it out the 2 years necessary. They had to hold the stock. And then they sold the stock while there was still the promise of this drug. Oh, we think this major drug company that sold it to us got it wrong. I mean, they didn't say that, but the major drug company would not have sold the drug if there was some way to make money out of it. I mean, they're playing the long game. They couldn't just pump and dump based on this drug, rearranging the study results to make it seem like it showed promise. But this small company could, and that's what they did. And they pumped the stock with the idea that it could help. Then they cashed out. And then they said, oh, God, we've completed the study. I'm just sorry. It was not what we initially hoped that it was. Gosh, it's just too bad. Value of the stock plummets. He took all those people's money, okay? He knew when to get out. He knew all along what he had. But he sold it as something else. And that tells me something. It's the same thing. As we said about Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and what I'm saying about Donald Trump, it doesn't matter how good they sound if you can't trust what they're saying. Now, what do? I don't want to accept all this because I don't have anybody to cheer for this cycle. Yeah, you're not a sports fan. This is not a game. This is not a sports team. This is you as a citizen doing the hard work of governing a country, and it's going to require you to be a little more grown up than that if you really want to do it right. Now, 99 out of 100 people listening to this video, I hope a little more than that, but very few listening to this video are going to have any patience or wherewithal to do that. But that's what's got to be done. Somebody's got to be the grown up. Otherwise, we're going to get more of what we've got, and it's going to be a disaster. So I want you to think about coming to grips with the idea that you don't have a horse to back in this race, and it's not a horse race anyway. It's real life, and your political time and attention is better spent finding some of those good men and women I was speaking of that you can trust, asking them if they want to run for local office, and you and your friends helping them win it. And maybe do that as a substitute for what the system wants you to do. They want you to cheer on. It's like Rome is collapsing and they're throwing a bunch of gladiatorial games, and they want you to cheer on the gladiators instead of be a citizen of the republic. I know this was not an easy message to listen to. I appreciate those of you who hung on to the end and to listen to me really be upset, because I am upset about this. I'm upset when I see what they're trying to turn many of you into, and I'm upset to see how well it's working, and I pray that our eyes are opened. Thank you for listening.